The very first panel of chapter 4 is Vayne in the Sentinel of Light garb standing next to Riven in the Sentinel of Life guard, who's standing next to Irelia in the Sentinel of Light garb, and then Cinna just being like, that's it. What's it? What do you mean that's it?
Welcome to Casuals of Runeterra, episode 55 again, but this time, part 2.
And this is a channel first, a part 2, not a part X, a part 2.
Yeah, I'm your host, Ryan, here with your other host, Hetch.
What's going on?
We're going to take, we did it in part 1, we'll do it in part 2, housekeeping up top. Let's keep consistent. Listen to us everywhere, as always. Oh, I forgot to mention the last part. We're now on Amazon. Amazon reached out. It was like, hey, we do podcasts now. Do you guys want to put your shit on here? Like, hell yeah.
All right. So if anyone out there who was already just switched over to the Amazon thing and is trying to tell us that we're not there, gotcha. We got you.
Yeah, so we're on Amazon now. You can listen to us there. Follow us on TikTok for clips. Follow us on YouTube for clips. And then Twitter to keep up to date on episodes. That's the best way. And that's at podcastcor. That's podcastcor. And then you can send an email to us at podcastcor@gmail.com. And listen, Amazon sent us emails, which means, do you think you're better than Amazon?
I just said it. We got you.
We got you. Send us an email there about anything. If you just want to say what's up, just say hi. That's enough. But also leave a like, follow, short review / comment wherever you listen. We appreciate it. It helps with discoverability. It helps with getting the word out. And it helps move us up the list so more people can kind of, hop in the insight on some League of Legends lore. But as always, the best way is to tell a friend, just one, to purify the mist more. We're doing more purification by listening to the Casuals of Runeterra podcast.
This man actually purify it more. You actually typed it in too. I hate
the
it
sausage.
Here. I hate it here. You're doing the rest of this by yourself.
So this episode, we're picking up where we left off on part 1 in comic 4 of the Sentinels of Light series or comic, Steadfast Heart. Yeah,
and if you're a new listener and you're just like hopping into the newest thing that was out there, we said at the beginning, but this is a part 2, so you go check out part 1 so that you can hear what happened in the first 3 comics, or at least more of our thoughts, less of what happened. And because this one is going to pick up really in a spot where, like, if you're in the dark, this is going to be like, what? Wait, what? And also, this is your one-time warning. This is going to have spoilers. Like, there's going to be so many stinking spoilers. And that's for a lot of characters like Viego, Akshan, Lucian, Cinna. This is a spoiler. This is just spoiler.
On top of spoilers.
So if you want to read the comics without the spoilers, go ahead and turn us off, give them a read, and then come back here so that you can share your thoughts with us too over at podcastcor@gmail.com.
Yep.
But yeah, let's get into chapter 4.
Yeah, so with having to listen to part 1, you might also want to check out our Riven and Irelia episodes. There's so much homework.
Yep. And as far as, like, if you're asking yourself, what do you mean listen to your Riven and Irelia episodes? Chapter 4, the first time I read this, I had to go back to chapter 3, go back to chapter 4, and do that like 3 times before I was like, I guess I'm not missing anything. This is probably my biggest critique of the whole comic series, which is that chapter 4 has the most awkward and confusing opening because we're doing some, pulp fiction, start from the end, Memento BS.
Yeah.
Where the last panel we had in chapter 3 was Vayne agreeing to join Lucian and Cinna so that she can figure out how to kill these wraiths. And it's this very shaky alliance that's being built. And then that we end on this alliance, and the very first chapter, or the very first panel of chapter 4, is Vayne in the Sentinel of Light garb standing next to Riven in the Sentinel of Life guard, who's standing next to Irelia in the Sentinel of Light garb, and then Cinna just being like, that's it. What's it? What do you mean that's it? No warning, nothing. Like, I wouldn't even have this critique if like the first panel of chapter 4 would have just been like the handshake that chapter 3 ended on, like for now, and then cut to this, because then it's like, okay, at least I know I'm in the right place.
That's perfect. I was in the same place, and I read this very late too when I was dozing off. So it was to the point to where I saw Irelia and I was like, is that Kaisa?
I thought it was Karma. I was like, wait, so it's like, is Karma actually going to become ruined Karma, like the skin they put in League of Legends? And but she was a Sentinel. Like, I was so lost.
Dude, you made a great point. So as I mentioned, this starts off in a very confusing place. We now have 2 additional members, which is why we recommend go listen to our episodes on them so you get a little bit more about why they're there. We'll get there, though, in the subsequent issues. But Sen is concerned. That's the main factor here.
Yeah.
Where she's concerned about doing this mission in the current state they're in.
Senna is concerned, but Senna is also like convinced that, they're out of time and this is what they've got to work with. And we get a little bit of a back and forth of a disagreement between Lucian and Senna, where, Senna is sharing these concerns with Lucian, but it's like, no, this is what we get and we have to make it work. Where Lucian is, going back to what we were seeing in the first chapters, is like, I've lost you once and I will not lose you again. So I don't care if you think this is enough. It's not enough, and I won't take that risk. And so we get this back and forth of this disagreement, and instead of really getting like an answer as far as what their plan is, we get a flashback of weeks earlier prior to that conversation. And then it's like, oh, okay, this is what happened before this first panel of Senna telling me that's it. And I'm staring at all these new people.
Yeah.
And Vayne's already got her hair cut and everything.
Yeah. Like, I thought it was it was a interesting, I think it was good, but also interesting story choice to say, we know where Lucian's mind is at, bringing Senna back and thinking, hey, that was the hard part, right? Because he sees it as, now that we have Riven and Irelia here and Vayne, that's icing on the cake compared to what he thought they were encountering. And to have Senna tell him, no, this might be a suicide mission if we have to do what we have to do. And he's like, whoa, that's kind of a shocker for him, right? He thought the hard part was over, essentially. So kind of bringing him back to reality, which is what Senna does. I mean, when they first met, in Lucian's story, that was kind of her bringing him to the reality of, hey, you've been a loner your whole life, but there's more going on than you think, right? And you can play a part in it.
Yeah, but Lucian has never once been for the greater good. And Cinna is the one that keeps reminding him what the greater good is. For Lucian, it was just, I'll fight for whoever as long as I'm fighting with you, Cinna.
Yeah.
And it is like that, mentioning that there's a sacrifice element of just like, look, this is what we got and we have to make it work, or over our dead bodies.
Yeah.
and
That's a
Lucian
great
just being
point.
like, whoa, I didn't agree. I didn't agree to your dead body again.
So to Hess's point, we get this flashback to weeks earlier where we go to the Noxus Reckoning Pits, where Riven is in jail. That's where they meet her. And you have more homework now. So you may want to listen to our Riven episode, our Swain episode, our Draven episode, and our Darius episodes.
Our only Noxus episodes.
Our only Noxus episodes. Pretty much you want to have that in your back. Because those stories alone kind of build their own story, but they'll fill in a lot of gaps that the comic will not with this flashback. This flashback is just to serve the bold choice of starting off issue 4 where they did, right? They need to fill in that backstory, how they got there. But something we do get here that's brand new that we don't talk about in any of those episodes is a fact here from Riven. So their goal is to distract the guards. They're both in, like, Riven's in one cell, Cinna, Lucian, they're in another cell. And Riven's like, hey, help me distract this guard so we can get out of here. And then whatever happens from that point forward, I'll help you all, right? Because recently she's been captured, if you know the end of her story. And she's like, all right, cool. And they're like, how are you going to do that? And when a guard walks by, they essentially distract the guard. She grabs the guard from behind and knocks him out to take his keys to open the gate. And she makes a comment, which I never really thought about, but it's a real cool kind of side fact where she says that Noxian soldiers, the way their armor is designed, is heavily focused to their front rather than their back, because in their culture, Noxian soldiers are never supposed to retreat or run away. And I thought, that's a cool tidbit.
Yeah,
that's writing a story right there.
It's a very cool tidbit. It also like plays into a lot of as a history nerd, I love all of the little nods that they give to Greek history that they have for Noxus, like with the Triferii, with and the Triferii being more of a Roman, when you get away from the Greek hoplites and the Roman or archetype of the building the armies. But the stuff that they steal that's very Greek, that's very much a Spartan thing. The Spartan Warriors were known. One, do not believe the 300 movie. Spartans wore armor because they're not dumbasses.
Yeah.
But
No
their
matter how
armor
strong
were
your
very
abs are.
yeah, their armor was very heavy breastplates, and it was all focused on the front because the Spartan way was that you were to return home with your shield or upon it, which would mean your dead bodies being carried on a shield.
Yeah.
So it's just playing along with these tidbits from history that they take in, and that is it is really nice because we haven't gotten that as far as spelled out for the Noxian army yet, and the way that we get it spelled out is Riven just being like, yo, get his attention.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kidney punch him.
I love there's a panel here when she gets out, opens the gate, opens up Lucian, Cinna, and Vayne's cell. And Senna's like, all right, Riven, what now? And the first thing we get out of Vayne's mouth is weapons. That's it. Weapons, period. Yep. She's like, I want my weapons.
Not even a complete sentence.
Yeah.
It is just all like empirical information. Weapons. This isn't surprising. This is the only reason Vayne is even here is because, hey, I can't kill the wraiths with my current weapons. You have weapons that allow me to kill them. I will go with you.
Exactly.
What now? Weapons.
Weapons. So we get fast forward here. They get their weapons, and then the guards, obviously reinforcement, shows up, and Riven makes that promise of, hey, you guys help me get out here. I don't know what you're up to, but I'll help. And they're like, all right, we'll hold you to it. And we get a final panel before we shift to Ionia of, once again, a front-on shot of Cinna, who is leaking mist and has bright green eyes. And it's like, all right, what are you telling us here?
Yeah, like there's definitely something going on. This is also like the point that everyone in the Sentinel of Light party at this point first gets to see Riven in action. Because like obviously we get to Riven doing the whole a good guy prisoner act of busting them out. But then we get to see that, you know, she's picking up the broken blade, the blade that she broke. And it's like, nope, this is my weapon to carry, which is kind of, you know, alluding to the weight that she carries due to her story. And it's important that they get that little caveat shown, because we do go to Ionia next. Riven and Ionia have a history. just a bit of a history.
Just a little bit here. And yeah, so we go to Ionia, and the first thing we get in the panel when they arrive in Ionia is we know some time has lapsed. So once again, the way they handle the time skipping is not great in these comics, but it's not too hard to, like, if you think about it a bit, you'll figure out where you're at. So we went a couple weeks back from that first panel, and now we're moving like probably a few more weeks in the future, because we have Riven looking different with Sentinel armor on, and then we have Vayne now has her haircut when they're in Ionia as well, and has her garb on as well. So there's probably been a moment where they went back to the fortress at some point. But when they arrive in Ionia, the first thing they come across is what we've mentioned before in the previous cards, where the mist is starting to take over these lesser creatures, these animals and these birds specifically in these panels. And they're like, oh shit, kill the birds, until they hear a cease.
That was such a Magic the Gathering comment, though, of just kill the bird. Yeah. Bolt the bird. Bolt the bird. Never let a
paradise.
Never let a bird's of paradise sit in the port. Don't let them untap with it.
And there's a comment here that's a callback to when Vayne meets Cinna and Lucian, where they call the birds monstrosities. And after we get the reveal of Irelia here, she's like, monstrosities? I only see one monster here. And remember, our last panel was Cinna, green eyes, pretty much mist billowing off of her again. We get this concept of referring to the one monster among the group. I thought, oh shit, it's Cinna. Like somehow Irelia, her connection to nature and, you know, the stuff we know about Ionia allows her to see that. But no, she's talking about Riven, the butcher.
Riven and Ionia have a little bit of history. But like it is nice because it does like it is building upon this whole thing of like how all of these characters for the most part were like confronting some kind of monstrosity. They had some kind of evil that they were hunting out. So everyone's goals align in the sense that they are all a warrior of justice and good. And even Riven to an extent, despite the fact that Riven is the butcher. And that I will say though, as far as the with the whole spiritual connection and everything, this is where I am kind of sad that the karma, the whole karma connection to the event, where it's the ruined karma, was just a skin and that's it. Because this scene of the birds getting deformed by the mists and attacking the group, and then Irelia getting the birds to like kind of just buzz off with Ionia's whole ability to connect with the spirits and stuff. Like if this was Karma doing it, it would have been just so much cooler. Because like Karma's the freaking Avatar. It's just like the Avatar show up and like, yeah, what are you doing here? What is all this? I need an explanation.
Yeah.
But maybe it's because it is Irelia, not Karma, is why like Senna's kind of off the hook in this whole thing. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Irelia is going to be looking for vengeance. Irelia doesn't care about what spirits that she's seeing, what she's seeing leaking off of Cinna with the green eyes and mist coming off of her. I don't care about that.
And we get another callback to the Vayne scene where Senna's like, all right, listen, just, you know, there's darkness coming. We need your help. Irelia recognizes that she can't do it alone by herself for what she's been encountering in Ionia alone. And she says, I'll help you guys. I'll join you guys, and I'll partner with the Butcher for now. And it's it's the constant truce for now. So there's like truce on top of truce on top of truce until they can kill Viego, and then I don't know, all hell's gonna break loose.
And with Irelia joining the party, the panel where Cinna is really kind of reaching the point of pleading with Irelia, this is the most human that Cinna looks at any point of the comics up to this point, because she is kind of she's crestfallen. So she's kind of, looking downward, a little more submissive, and the glow of her eyes is not made to be nearly as bright in this. So you can still see natural. That it's like Cinna has still got that bad voodoo going on, but it gives this appearance that Cinna is able to suppress it, or like almost kind of presents this battling that Cinna's doing, because like now it's that the mist isn't even coming out, the eyes aren't glowing as much as they are. It's like Cinna's repressing all of that to plead with Irelia that for the good of humanity, can you just help us fight this and then deal with your stuff later.
And there's a cool line here, which is, Irelia says, I hear truth over pain. And she's mentioning her own pain because based on what happened with Riven in her story and what Ionia goes through dealing with Swain, this is soon after that point, in my mind, because it's almost like Irelia hasn't gotten over what's happened to her people and what they've had to go through because of those incidents. And now there's this next thing. So she hasn't been able to deal with her own pain, but the truth is there's something bigger than her that needs to be taken care of. Because remember, at this point, if you go listen to our Irelia story, she's made the choice that her village is what matters, and that's what she cares about. She gets hyper-focused. So being forced to open that lens back up is probably tough on her, because she's still young too here as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely at the oldest point that Irelia is at in any of the stories, and she's probably not even over 20, because all of Irelia's story happens to her when she's like 15. So, spoilers for the Irelia episode, being a 15-year-old and returning to your house to see the corpses of your family as all of your possessions are confiscated by a conquering nation. And then they decide to kill you on top of your family's corpses. That's a lot to take in. That's a lot. That's a lot. So I mean, the whole, like, for someone so young to still be able to be like, I hear truth over pain, bro. Irelia is a badass. Like that.
And then this wraps up. Yeah,
this wraps pain.
Up. It's crazy. It's a level of wisdom at an age that you shouldn't have that yet. But this takes us back to the headquarters. And we're back to where we started, right, at the first panel. But we get an interesting flip after all this has happened, where even with the additional resources, they're doing some targeting practice. They're kind of, figuring out each other's fight styles. And what ends up happening is Lucian now still feels like they're not ready, even with all this additional work. And we get left off with him kind of wandering off in his own thoughts, and physically as well, from them practicing on the island. And we get the to be continued.
Yeah, and that does play into how he keeps voicing his doubts to Cinna about, I say his doubts, his fears of not wanting to lose Cinna again, while Cinna is constantly reinforcing, like, we have to put our lives after the protection of the realm. So clearly these doubts just have been eating away at him throughout all of this, and he's off. And we're going to have to go into the next chapter to figure out why. Before we do that, one of the last panels in this chapter, since I mentioned it before, we get to see kind of all the women in the new Sentinels of Light Garb, and whoever illustrated that panel, they knew what they wanted. They knew what they wanted to see. That everybody, like even Vayne, is walking away with a dumpy seal on this. Like everybody suddenly has like double D's. Like it's ridiculous. And especially like leading up to this, like Riven has been like built like Riven.
Yeah.
But no, and Irelia has been built like Irelia, but nah, not in this panel.
And listen, there's always a constant conversation about League's style choices across their female cast, and there's plenty of conversation going on if you want to join in on that. Because I mean, we've talked about it like in our Monster Girl episode for Rek'Sai and some things like that. There's plenty of stuff. TB Skyen talks about it at length about how like the diversity of imagery. And there's stuff out there, and it definitely comes up again once you look at the comic. You're like, come on, right? You can do better than this.
God, you brought up our Monster Girl episode. I'm like, oh no, we're part of the problem.
Currently our most popular episode, but we won't dwell on that.
We're part of the problem.
This takes us into comic number 5. And Hetch, do you kind of want to talk about where this one picks up? Because you mentioned it earlier on.
Okay, so this is going to be picking up into where we were talking about, like in one of our most recent episodes. No, the chapter doesn't start off there. I'm jumping the gun. There's so much to talk about. I'm so happy.
Right?
All right, so where this one is going to pick up is going to be taking a look back at Viego, because
it's been a while.
It's been since chapter 2 since we've actually checked in on him. And when we checked in on him, quote unquote, it was when he was still a human and causing the ruination. Now we get to see Viego, the ruined king. And we're actually getting to see what what Cinna was warning Lucian about when she first hops out of the lantern. It's like, the Ruined King is coming, we got to stop it. And so this very first panel is already kind of a lot to take in, because we have Viego, we have another humanoid depiction of Thresh, but it's also a depiction of Thresh that we have not seen in League of Legends or in Legends of Runeterra. Like, Thresh is really becoming more of a malleable idea in this, but it's Thresh talking to Viego about how the prize he has sought is finally coming within his reach. And this is where we learn where that Viego is basically causing another ruination with all these encroaching mists, but he's sending these encroaching mists out in search of Isolde's soul. And we also get to see how absolutely twisted his persona has become ever since becoming a Wraith, because the first line that Viego says in Ruined King form is Thresh saying, hey, your prize is so near, and speak of my queen as a prize again, Thresh, and I will fillet your soul. Okay. Oh, yes, sir. Whatever you say.
And we learned we learned two things as a result of this interaction, which are important. Is that if Viego's control over the mist means that if Viego kills you, you die in real life.
You die in the game, you die for real.
Exactly. So he has the ability to send specters off to wherever, which is probably why they all serve him. And because he's able to control mist, and like Blight kind of comes from him, as we speak about in his episode. So definitely check that out. The second part is to retort to that. Thresh reminds Viego that, hey, I played a part in connecting your person back to your soul. So there's a card I want to mention. You know, it's been a little bit, but there is a card in Legends of Runeterra that does reference this. It's a quote from Ari Rents, who's a Dauntless Vindicator. And the first half, he says, the mist severs spirit from flesh. It's called Mist Call, by the way. The mist severs spirit from flesh, leaving behind a foul parody of life. And then he mentions, I have seen it corrupt my lands, so I go now to those cursed isles to end this. And the first part of that is the most important, is because we've constantly talked about what the mist does when it takes a hold of somebody's soul. But to know that Thresh, because he behaves uniquely where he can trap souls in his lantern and kind of control them, listen to our Thresh episode if you want to know about how he died and how he became his version of the Wraith. The fact that he can connect things back and give them more of a purpose plays a big role when you think about Hecarim. You think about, why am I blanking?
Callista.
Oh, no. Callista, thank you.
I got you.
You think about Callista, and Thresh was one of the first specters to appear as well, which is another important thing. So this is our first glimpse at, Thresh is more important and more significant than we thought. Because once he makes that comment, Viego kind of shifts his focus as far as, the shit talking.
Yeah, and it's also really nice to be seeing these details too, because it's not just what separates Thresh because of an ability that he has. It separates Thresh from the other Wraith characters because he is not single-minded. Like we have Viego is just hunting down the shards of Isolde's soul. We have Hecarim just trying to continue an endless battle. Callista trying to find vengeance for against those that killed her. Thresh is not stuck on anything. Thresh is just kind of like, okay, let me get all these pieces of these freaks back and send them off to work. And he's clearly playing at some kind of game, and we just don't know what it is. But the other Wraiths don't have the mental capacity to do that, or at least to our understanding, they don't have that. But Thresh does.
Exactly. Great point. Yeah. This then takes us back to the headquarters again, where we go back to Lucian's. Remember, we left off with Lucian kind of wandering off at the headquarters previously. And it's him in a library of sorts, kind of just digging around, trying to find enough information to make him more comfortable with their current situation before they go off to fight or encounter Viego. And one thing he comes across in his research is a picture of a weapon, a Sentinel weapon, a specific Sentinel weapon, the Absolver. So you now have more homework. Listen to our Akshan episode for more details on what that means.
Yeah, and as far as this, well, I'm gonna give a count to 2 in case you haven't. In case before I spoil it.
It's a very unique number to choose.
Yeah, so a 1 and a 2. So the spoilers of the Absolver is that this is the weapon that Akshan uses. Then the Absolver has the ability to revive the dead at the cost of someone else's life, or specifically the killer's life. So if it is used in vengeance, it brings back the victim. And of course, being Lucian stumbling across this, it's a no-brainer that he's going to start focusing on this, because he's just constantly up to this point reminding Cinna and dwelling on the fact that he cannot lose Cinna again. It would break him. So, hey, if I can find a weapon that basically gives me a do-over, I'm gonna go grab it. And exactly. We now get to see Lucian go off in search of the Absolver.
Yeah.
And
so
instead of the Absolver, he finds he finds like my ideal man. He finds the thirst trap of League of Legends.
So we get a solo mission, and this is, I think we read into things a little bit more, but this is the first solo mission since finding Cinna, right? So we're fast forwarding a long period of time. So for him to separate himself from Cinna on this mission is a big deal. It means that he is truly anxious. This is a more important thing than maintaining Cinna's safety. Having the other group of women with him probably gives some security there, but this is a big deal for him to go out solo again. in search of this artifact, and naturally he comes across Akshan in the act of doing Akshan things. And he thinks Akshan is this lost sentinel he's looking for. He's looking for the lost sentinel, and he's looking for the Absolver. Unfortunately, if you listen to Akshan's episode, the lost sentinel was Shadia, or Shadia, who was his mentor and an older Sentinel of Light, who's no longer alive. And he informs him that, hey, she died weeks ago, which now gives us more of a correlating timeline to know where we're at in the story based on where Akshan's story left off.
And this is it's really cool because Akshan being a newer character, like Akshan was released after the release of Legends of Runeterra, so he's like just off of the chronological releases of Champions, he's the newest character in this story. The fact that all of his stories kind of tie in to these comics is really stinking cool. I don't know like if you want to go into a lot of detail with it, but there is a short story with Akshan, the In Search of Things Lost.
Yeah, we'll get there.
It's happening here too. Okay, if we're gonna get there, then we'll get there. Cool. I was like, I don't know how deep we're going in. I forgot to ask that. But yeah, like specifically with Lucian getting there, Akshan says you're a week late. So yeah, this is all happening immediate. So we just finished his biography. All right, he has killed Shadia's killer, and the Absolver did not bring her back. And then he ended up saving a street urchin, much in the same way that he was saved by Shadia with the Absolver. So then proving that the Absolver does work, but it couldn't bring back Shadia. So why is his life, he is struggling with trying to figure out why his life is more important than Shadia's. And this is all happening in his brain while Lucian's just like, now hang on a second. I need the lost Sentinel of Light.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, bro, you're too late for that. I'm dealing with my own crap. All right.
I'm busy.
Bro, I'm busy.
Sir, this is a Wendy's.
This is a Wendy's.
But yeah, so we get this conflict of Akshan being like, I don't have time for this. And what this leads into is Viego showing up. So Akshan kind of goes about his business. Lucian's like, well, shit. And then Viego shows up, which doesn't make him feel any better. And he shows up with the mist. And this is where we get the reveal to the characters of the fact that Viego wants Cinna back in his control because she has a piece of Isolde in her. And in order for him to get Isolde back, he needs Cinna. And the deal he offers him isn't really a deal. He says, Lucian, here's what I offer you to do. You give me Cinna, I get the piece of Isolde back, and then you go back to being a loner and forget this happened. That's it. That's the deal.
Deal. Bro.
That's a madman.
Hey, take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Let me make you an offer you can't refuse. Like, I will take your $1 million, and then you can live without it.
Yeah. That's a good one. And the funny thing about that is Lucian's like, well, no. And he's like, all right, cool, fight this mist. I'll see you later. So he bounces, leaves encroaching mist for Lucian to fight alone. And he almost loses. Like, it's the point where he's like down and out kind of situation, losing consciousness. And Akshan shows back up. He steps back in and he decides, all right, screw it. I'll help you. Here's some Absolver action, him swinging from the ropes, the good old Akshan stuff. And he tells him that, as Hetch mentioned, he's like, if this hasn't been working up to this point, despite all the warlords I've dealt with, he's taken his revenge, but she's still not back, which also leaves a window open of what happened to Shadia? How did she die? Right? Because if he figured out that the Absolver does work within his hands, then why isn't she back after he took revenge? And in the meantime, he's like, well, since I have this massive new question to answer, in the meantime, I can help y'all out. All right, I'll come hang out. I was being a dick before. Let's chill.
Yeah, and and they never like specified in the comic, but like when after like Akshan comes swinging in and we get the nice Akshan action, he just looks at Lucian and is like, "Welcome back." And then Lucian is like, "Was I?" And it's like, "Yep, sure were." And so then it's like, wait, Lucian dead? Did Viego just like gib Lucian? Just, I mean, that kind of fits because these these bruiser types and AD carries do not mix. The AD carry, if he gets in touching range, the AD carry's dead. What, you don't have flash anymore? Sucks to be you. But so, and it also plays into Akshan's story. Again, everything is very fresh for Akshan. This is all happening within weeks of each other, whereas at this point the Sentinels of Light have been moseying around for months at this point, where Akshan is like a week into a very fresh wound, and you're trying to dig and pry about it. I don't want to answer these questions. And one of the ways that he is now being forced to answer these questions is saving Lucian's butt. And then he's like, wait, so this kind of brings up more questions and I don't know when to answer them. And Lucian's kind of like, well, now come with me. Come with me if you want to fight Wraiths. And
I think it's funny that he says, all right, I appreciate the offer. Just let me know when you need my help. And he's like, right now. We got to go right now.
Right now. Right now.
He's like, all right, let's go.
What you think? You think I've got it like in my Google Calendar? I'll email you. No, like
add me to the calendar. Send me an invite. Optional Outlook invite.
Yeah. So that's where chapter 5 ends, is with Akshan kind of coming to terms with what his stock in light as a Sentinel of Light is, and Lucian going, well, we gotta go. So then that takes us to chapter 6, and chapter 6 opens with a very pissed off Cinna. And let's talk about some of the best Cinna panels that we're gonna get. All right, like there's a lot in like pop culture as far as like these mythical characters that people like to align themselves with, and the relationships that they build, and it's like, oh man, like there's some of those, like it's like, oh, I want a relationship like that. And then the nerd communities always make fun of the people who want Harley Quinn and Joker stuff. Yep. I think we've finally gotten past that, but you get it. You know that. No, Cinna and Lucian, that's what you want. This is what you want. Lucian coming back home thinking that he did a good thing, and Cinna being like, where the fuck were you? No, I don't care if you did a good thing. You left without talking to me. Yeah. And like I'm kind of hamming it up because I do find it funny. Like it's a good
panel.
It's a great panel, and all of it's leading through this like argument that they have is great. The dialogue is fantastic, but we do get the kind of underlying thing that's been throughout this whole comic series, which is the more passionate that Cinna gets about Lucian, you need to recognize that what you did was kind of messed up. Like, you left without telling me anything. The more passionate she gets about that, the greener and brighter her eyes get.
Yep.
The more that we start seeing that there's a little bit of mist around Cinna. Like, something's wrong. Still, even though it's this very natural, we've been a married couple forever conversation.
Yeah, and we, as the with Lucian encountering Viego, we now know, right, what is in her, which is part of Isolde, who is a Mist Wraith. Remember, she killed Viego. So this then takes us to, we get a little interaction between Akshan first meeting the group of women. We know Akshan as the playboy of the streets, and they're not taking kindly to it. Listen, when it comes to being a dashing young man, Vayne, Riven, and Irelia are not the ones to play some game against. Like, that's not where you want to practice.
They are not the ones. Oh boy, are they not the ones. And this comic is constantly just like Man, that very first panel, because like I also love that like the panel of Akshan introducing himself to them is luckily I've been poking fun at the illustrations of the women in this comic. One, it is the same for Akshan. Like Akshan straight up looks like a fan.
Anime pro tag.
No, he looks like a fan drawing of Akshan.
Yeah, he does.
Like he looks like someone who like has really like they've got a real crush on Akshan, and it's like this is my chance to draw what I see when I look at Akshan.
Yeah.
That's what Akshan looks like in his panel of introducing himself to the women, and then we get to Vayne and Riven reacting to it. With one, Vayne is like, "Cool, I'll just kill him. Like, if I kill him, it's over." But again, I'd been poking fun with how the women have been drawn in some of these panels. They did not draw them in this like that at all in this panel.
Yeah.
Vayne and Riven look like Vayne and Riven.
Yeah.
They look like trained killers, and they're
Exactly.
ready to kill this imager / Tumblr drawing of Akshan.
It's so good. And then we get finally Senna's like, all right, forget all of it. We have to go. Because remember, they were already in a rush. And then Lucian disappeared, which is why, honestly, she's angry. So now they have to take the oath. So as we've mentioned, episodes ago, the Sentinels of Light exist for the purpose of fighting back against the, Ruination, Mist, etc., right? They serve a purpose. So they have to take the oath of the Sentinels of Light, which will then put them in direct conflict with Viego.
To take the oath, you must have a glass of oath milk.
You must take the oath.
Drink the oath milk.
The oath milk. It's very popular these days. So they take the oath and they follow, because at this point, Senna is the oldest. Shadia being dead, from what we know from the list of Sentinels of Light, the person who has the most knowledge is Senna, so she leads them through the oath, all these new members. So they take the oath, and then, boom, the battle begins. We're now in Viego's domain, and from how I see it, from based on how these panels are drawn, I want to see, Hetch, if you feel the same way, it actually teleports them to his domain versus them traveling there. I'm assuming that's how it feels.
I get that feeling too. Like I can only logically I can't see it as a teleportation thing, just because like if we had a Yordle in the Sentinels of Light, one, I'd be pissed because all Yordles deserve death. But if we had a Yordle, then it would kind of give you like the excuse of like, okay, like someone kind of guided them to Bandle City, and then from Bandle City they made it to the Shadow Isles. But there's a lot of the magics behind what caused the ruination and what really drives these encroaching mists that we don't understand. So I'm down with the whole teleporting thing.
Okay.
Like even if they didn't teleport, it could be a thing of like they completed the oath and then Viego just was like, "Sup."
Oh, bring them to me. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like Viego just like, okay, cool. Yeah. Oh, I sense a disturbance on the mists. All right, let's just get this over with. Snaps his fingers and they're there. Because he's already been doing that. He appeared on Lucian's heels to try to strike the worst deal ever made.
Exactly. So this takes us to what we've been working up to this point, where we get the first confrontation between the whole group. Because remember, up to this point, Senna doesn't know that Lucian encountered Viego at all. So they're all meeting Viego at his throne with Thresh by his side, and we get a little dialogue here. And one thing that stands out, which is important to know, is that Viego's like, you, Senna, have the person I love within you, right? And I need that. And what she lets him know is he doesn't know that Isolde is not happy. The part of her that is Isolde doesn't want him as he is, doesn't want to be back with him as he is, because it's not the man she fell in love with. He doesn't like that.
I mean, he has destroyed an entire nation. Well, two entire nations, if you count the just the disrepair of Camavor under his reign. He's destroyed two nations in the name of this woman, and then is now in the process of destroying the whole world in the name of this woman.
Yeah.
Like, what is there to dislike, Isolde? Like,
I don't get it.
What more can I give you?
No, Hetch, Viego is a nice guy.
And nice guys, they always finish last. Of course she's gonna pick some jerk like Akshan. Oh god, we're gonna get canceled so fast.
Right? We get a great line here from Lucian though, that remember the first half of the story was that parallel we told you about. And he breaks that here at the end of the story, where he's like, listen, we've both had our loves taken from us, but only one of us is trying to destroy the world. So that gives you the clear, I'm not like you. I was destroying myself, but I was not trying to, bring everybody else into the pain that I was suffering from.
Yeah. And Viego's response to that is, I promise that when I reclaim her now, the oblivion it shall grant you will not bring pain. Thanks.
Once again, one of those deals that he has. He's not a real deal maker. He's not the person you put on the business side.
This is the real reason Camavor fell into disarray, is because he just knows nothing about like
foreign policy.
He knows nothing about like markets. He knows nothing about. He can't even barter. Like, forget about these large macro decisions of finances between kingdoms and these exchanges of resources. The man can't barter.
Yeah, Viego's the guy who sold Amazon at $6 in the 90s. He was like, no, this is the peak, bubble bursting.
It's only downhill from here.
Yeah, and we have Lucian saying, you know what, I'm done. And he starts firing. So we finally have our action scene. And we're going to get a bunch of panels of Sakuga. Some good old animated fights of just some back and forth. We've built up to this point, right? And a lot of the fights before they start, you get a bargain or a truce where they're like, oh, okay, we'll help each other out. But they go all out. We get a large full panel here of some whoosh, some swack, some pumes, all your action sounds, the different type of, abilities go off, because Viego's not fighting alone. He's using the mist to his advantage. And this is the mist in its domain, right? So probably at its strongest point, as you usually get in any type of fantasy types thing. But yeah, we get some, what do you think about the action shots here of each individual? We have a back-to-back of Akshan and Vayne working together to kill some mist.
I do love that you pointed out that this is going to be like the battle of Viego at his strongest, because we get that with Lucian, kind of being like, nah, screw this. He fires the cheap shot and Viego literally just lets it hit him while just staring at Lucian. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess we're doing this. And then just fight happens like nothing happened. So, I'm not imagining Lucian was firing a warning shot. Especially, a warning shot that just landed on his chest.
Exactly.
Lucian's shooting to kill. So yeah, this is going to be the toughest fight that any of them see here. And as far as like with the action and everything, the thing that I was the most hyped for is all the comic book sounds. So you get your swoosh and your rah, but also it's specifically with Riven, because then you get to see that she's got the blade reforged, except it's a Sentinel of Light weapon.
Yeah.
So now it's like the blade reforged specifically for killing wraiths.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, yeah, this is like perfect nerd fantasy.
Yeah.
Like, it's like I'm remembering playing like Bunny Girl Riven way back in the day and trying to build the carrot. And it's like, this is so much cooler than a carrot.
I want to reference our last card for, this part of the series here, which is Withering Mist, which is a card that pictures Viego's specter weapon, like his sword transforming. But the quote here is the great part of it kind of sums up his view on the Cinna Isolde situation. Is his quote here: "I will take what I want and dispense of what I don't." And that's pretty much his plan. It's very simple. His goal is to get what he wants, which is Isolde from Senna's being, and then ditch away with what's left. He doesn't care, right? He wants what he wants. And that's kind of, unfortunately, how he lived his life up to this point, right? Viego's not, like from the beginning, is not a bad guy, but he's not really a good one at any point either.
Yeah, he's never a good man. But it shows like the moral ambiguity of just humanity, like the fact that you can over obsess with something to the degree that you end up hurting society, or even more than society as a whole, just off of your obsession. But the big thing here is that, like, outside of Isolde, it's not so much malice, it's that he doesn't care. And we get to see that in his fight, like once Lucian and Cinna are like, let's go, let's do this together. The only thing he says to them is, oh, tedious. Oh man, y'all are gonna make me fight. I wanted just to chill today.
Yeah.
like tedious. And then, then we get like the anime thing deflecting all the shots and everything.
Sakuga.
Sakuga.
Yeah, and then this takes us to the pivotal point in the fight, which is Lucian engages directly, and then, me bringing up Withering Mist, which has that picture of his sword. He uses his sword to teleport behind Lucian. Lucian loses track of him. Where did he go? And then we get a panel, which is very important, because we get a shot of Cinna deep within herself, talking to Isolde, saying, we have to stop him. And all of the mist around her turns to light. It gets absorbed by light, and then she opens her eyes, and her eyes are bright yellow. And this is the first time we get to see that change in color, because Isolde's like, you're right. We need to do that. That's not the man I loved. We have to stop him. And she gets, that super powered up and loads it into her weapon, fires it at Viego, and hits both Viego and Thresh. Important.
Like we get to also see that it is not just a sense of humanity coming out of Cinna, because we have Isolde going, like, saying that this is not the man that I loved, so I cannot stop him, but I can give you this, which is the hallowed mist to fight his encroaching mist. So we get to see this, like, all of this isn't necessarily like, a part of Cinna that's in there. It is coming from Isolde, and it is a power that is comparable to what Viego is doing, which is also a power that is twisting the entirety of the Shadow Isles and bringing the mists away from the islands to the mainlands of Runeterra. So yeah, this is this some powerful crap going on. That's a lot to take in just these quick sets of panels of Viego and Thresh's demise here.
Exactly. And then we get the line here where she says, if my Viego's soul cannot know peace, then he shall be where he can do no harm, or do harm no longer. And that's Camavor. Takes him back to his decrepit throne in the fallen city of Camavor, and he's binded to that throne by the light. So that's a great kind of resolution, is that she doesn't want to kill him, doesn't want to destroy him, because he still is a part of him, but binding him to the place that he is completely responsible for destroying seems like that's reasonable punishment for the crime.
Yeah. And it also, like, even if you can argue that the crime deserves something more, it shows that Isolde still loves Viego. Like, it's, again, this is power. This is a power that we know is a lot to take in, because this is combating what is moving these forces away from the islands. And if it's strong enough to fight that, then it's got to be hella strong. And she uses it just to bind Viego to Camavor. So it is I don't want to kill you, but I can't let you do whatever you want. So I'm just going to bind you as far away from all of humanity as possible. And then hopefully in this binded state, you can find peace, and that will allow me to find peace. So we get to see that, you know, is there's still love there even from Isolde. Like, even though is saying that this isn't who I fell in love with. Um, and then we finally get to see, you know, Lucian and Cinna celebrate the victory that they've done it. But the key thing as far as them doing it, and well, the victory being had by the Sentinels of Light, and now they have freedom to do whatever they want. This giant blast did not kill Viego, and it hit Thresh. So did it kill Thresh?
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. We get down to the last panels with Lucian. I've been fighting for this day for so long. I don't know what to do now. Cinna says we could do whatever we want, you know, superhero movie ending.
Yeah.
And then we get to the shattered throne of the Wraith King, and a speech bubble that just says "sweet deluded fools." And behind the throne, we get now a golden lantern, not the Thresh's normal lantern, a golden lantern. They think themselves a victor here, but the true victor is me. And Thresh laughing, but not just Thresh laughing, a human
Yep.
Thresh laughing maniacally. And our final chapter of the Sentinels of Light is the end for now.
One additional piece is that also we get the encroaching mist going into the lantern. And there's a bit of it behind him as well, which leads us to believe we now have a human Thresh who probably has no restrictions on the human plane as far as being there, and probably has the control of the mist under his control. And to what Hedge mentioned earlier, we know that when it comes to the persona of spectral beings, he's the one that's been able to maintain his persona the most, up to what we know at this point. So yeah, this kind of brings us to the end thought here, which is like, I enjoyed the comic. I think we both did.
Oh yeah.
But I expected a couple endings, didn't expect this one, for them to leave it open-ended, because we've waited so long for this story to be told. I thought they would kind of wrap a bow on it, but we do have the game coming out, which is the Ruin King, which might add more to it as we get more characters, because there's different characters involved in that game. So it kind of makes sense that they went this route, and we'll find out, won't we? At some point, we have to. They better.
They better. Like, holy crap, they better. Because, again, we have waited a very long time to actually get to this point of seeing the story unfold of Senna's return to Runeterra. And because, I mean, I know a lot of people would argue that it's like, oh, it hasn't been so long since Viego has been released, but Senna's been out a long time.
Yeah.
So people have been waiting for this, and for it to end on a cliffhanger is, man, it's good writing, but it's infuriating at the same time.
Yeah.
And I'm excited too to see like because obviously with it ending on the cliffhanger, it's so easy to kind of get stuck on, you know, what is Thresh now and what kind of threat that Thresh is bringing to Runeterra. But again, they're ending it with Lucian and Cinna being like, we can do whatever we want now. And the rest of the Sentinels of Light had very, very flimsy bonds.
Yeah.
Like it shows them walking off in the distance. They don't say a word as far as like this whole ending thing, because of course this is Cinna and Lucian's fight.
Yeah.
And we've got Irelia and Riven like probably going to go at each other's throats. Cinna was like for the first time in all of this has shown like a little bit of control over like the mists and showing that these mists are different than the encroaching mists that was all around this return of the ruination. She still is ending with green eyes.
Yep.
And Vayne now has a weapon that can kill wraiths.
Yep.
That's all Vayne was here for. And Akshan is clearly not hitting it off with any of these ladies. So, like, what's going to happen to the Sentinels of Light after this? Because, like, I don't see it being a clean-cut thing of, like, there's a new baddie in town. Sentinels, assemble. No, these guys don't want to assemble. Like Lucian and I would love it if when we start getting into like the next bit of story, like the tutorial for the Ruined King game, just being like Lucian and Cinna running for their lives from Vayne. It's just like, like one of those boss fights that like you're not meant to win. Yeah, that's teaching you the game, and it's Vayne being like, "All right, our deal's off the table now. I held up my end of the bargain. Now give me a corpse."
No, that actually, you make a great point there. And this kind of ends, this part where for the comics, went through the comics part 1, part 2, but there is more to the Sentinels of Light story that we'll get into in some subsequent episodes coming up. So keep an eye out for the next parts where we talk more about some of the stories that came out during the Sentinels of Light run here. But I think what will happen is as we shift into some other stories from the Riot side of focus, we'll come back as you probably get some trailers of because we have, the Jinx movie, we have Bandle City, we have so many things that they plan on doing. They'll probably come back when the trailers start running, right, for that game, and they start getting ready to sell it, where we'll get more details on that. And we'll be here to bring you those details. We're not going anywhere.
Bandle City.
Let me stop. Okay. And with that,
it just had to be Yordles.
Thanks for listening. Let's not let him get going. And we'll be back soon with the next episode.
Just had to be Yordles. Take care, everybody.
For now.
For now.